Okay. Pull down. Bawah. Dada. Ya, sudah. Kayak lagi. Ram Jaya Ram, Jaya Ram, Jaya Ram. Ada pergi, apa pergi? Shri Ram Jaya Ram, Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram, Shri Ram. Jaya Jaya Ram, Om Shri Ram. Jaya Jaya Ram, Shri Ram Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram, Ram Jaya Ram, Shri Ram Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram, Ram Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram, Jaya Ram, Jaya Ram, Shri Ram Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram, Ram Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram, Ram Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram, Ram Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram. Ram Ram. Om Ram Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram. Om Ram Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram. Om Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram. Om Ram Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram. 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 Ram Jaya Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Ram Jai Ram. 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 Jai Jai Ram. Om Ram Jai Ram. Jai Jai Ram. Om Ram Jai Ram. Jai Jai Ram. Om Ram Jai Ram. Jai Ram. Ram Jai Ram. Jai Jai Ram.
Hari Om, Hari Om.
Jai Ram.
Anything happened to that mat?
Jai Jai.
You ask her. We are worried about mat.
Ram Jai Ram. Jai Jai Ram. Ram Jai Ram. Jai Jai Ram. Ram Jai Ram. Jai Jai Ram. Ram Jai Ram. Jai Jai Ram.
Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Om. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Om.
Ram Jai Ram. Jai Jai Ram. Ram Jai Ram. Jai Jai Ram.
Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Om. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Om.
Ram Jai Ram. Jai Jai Ram. Ram Jai Ram. Jai Jai Ram.
Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Om. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Om.
Ram Jai Ram. Jai Jai Ram. Ram Jai Ram. Jai Jai Ram.
Jai Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Om.
Ram Jai Ram.
Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Om.
Ram Jai Ram.
Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Om. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Hari Om to everybody. Yesterday, Papa made us to intensely dwell on the solo director, solo actor, solo producer. It may be an intellectual exercise for all of us. Because at the moment, our sense of individuality is so powerful that, as somebody has pointed out, we don't want to now put ourselves in the form of an actor. We are ourselves the director. We decide. So by going through the words of the solo director, solo producer, solo actor, we try with the help of reflection, with the help of going through the biographical sketch of those who have scaled the heights, their inspiring words. In our case, we are always guided by that word, behold divinity in every aspect of his word. Verily, he is at play in all beings and creatures. If we keep on thinking about it, dwelling upon it, reflecting upon it, whenever we have to deal with men and matters, whenever there are trying moments, we may react in the usual way we have been so far doing it, but in the shortest possible time, there will be a rethinking. Slowly, that is how it sets in. He willed it. Automatically, we will start feeling it. He willed it. We don't know the reason. Then we try to recollect all these things. One thing is very clear to us, He is there as the life force inside us, but he is not making us aware of its presence. Simple thing. We all know that. Nobody need to come and tell us this. He is there in the form of life force. He is there in the form of consciousness. He is there in the form of awareness or intelligence. He is Satchit Anand. We breathe because of him. We think because of him. We see because of him. Because the moment the life goes away from this body, we become dead. We have seen dead bodies also. That much we know, nobody need tell us. So he is there as the life force. Evanam sarva bhudeshu. I am there in the form of life force in every jiva. But I am not aware. That mystery at least we recognize. Now those who have scaled the heights, they are conscious of this. That is called the solo director, solo actor, solo producer. We are also aware, but we are not constantly aware. For all practical purposes, our thought becomes vibrant, active. It takes away, it assumes the role of doership, enjoyership, sufferership. With the result, the existence of this support, substratum is forgotten, unknowingly forgotten. It is there. Not that we don't know, but we know. But at the same time, we don't know. We know when we are in a passive, in a passive mood, in a reflective mood. He is there. But for him, I will not be there. But the moment the activity comes, the moment the thought becomes active, his presence is sidelined. When he say he is the, because of him, he is the director. That's why it's called the director. director and producer, and we are the actor. Not only that it comes from the origin, source, producer, but it's also directed by every moment of our existence. This is the truth which we are not aware. So by sadhana, we are trying to become aware. Now it is becoming more and more clear what is our sadhana. Our sadhana is to hand ourselves over completely to the real owner. At the moment, we have assumed the ownership. He has permitted us to use the assumption. And then at a time comes when he makes us to think about it. And then he makes us to make efforts towards it. And we have seen in the life of Mahatma, ultimately he gives this. He makes us aware of it. All these thoughts came because of that particular word. Behold divinity in every aspect of the world. Verily, it is he at play, not beings. So the sense of individuality, the absence of other, sense of individuality, we won't say it is not there. It becomes totally subservient to the power. Again, if we keep on thinking about it, we may be able to figure out many things. Another friend has said, then how does dharma come into the picture? Dharma comes so long as we have the sense of individuality. That is why in the Bhagavad Gita he says, Sarvadharman Parityajya. When we realize that it is he who is behind everything, then the question of dharma does not come. So that dharma is a code of conduct given to us by him till we maintain this sense of individuality. Otherwise, we will go off the track. It becomes fully self-centered. In order that it doesn't become fully self-centered and it becomes slowly God-centered, dharma is necessary. Think about it. It is a spiritual law. It is a physical law and spiritual law. If we don't adhere to that, we become totally self-centered and become miserable. Dharma towards parents, dharma towards our children, dharma towards wives, dharma towards husband, dharma towards the employer, dharma towards the employee. Like that, everywhere it comes. Duty. Relating ourselves properly with the others is called dharma. Otherwise, we become brute. Jungle, they say, impulsively we will react. That should be there. But dharma loses its relevance when we completely hand ourselves over to it. Because God has got different purpose. Now take the instance of Mataji. Mataji had two children, small children. A time when the care of a mother is needed. We don't know how far we are right, but we were told that even Mataji's Purashram people or even children, they mistook. They couldn't appreciate why Mataji took the drastic step of leaving everything from Dharwad and dedicating herself completely to spiritual life. But she did not abandon them. If we look closely, what was she said at the time of leaving? She asked the children to accompany her. She said, whatever I get, that will be shared to you. She did not leave them, abandon them. But children prefer to stay with their uncle to continue their education. Of course, then somebody can interpret that. But in her case, the ultimate instruction comes from within. Her surrender has become complete. Otherwise, how can she come? A lady of 25 years old, leaving everything to come with nothing to fall back upon, and travel by steamboat up to Mangalore, from there by train to Kasargod, from there on foot to the ashram alone. At that time, ladies were not exposed to walk, to go independently. What was the motivating force? What was that gave her the strength? It is nothing but the will of God. So dharma is needed. Dharma should not be belittled. For us, it is needed until we hand ourselves over completely. Then the question was Sarvadharman parityajya. Mam ekam sharanam brada. Aham tva sarvabhavebhyo mokshayishyami. So that stage. Papa also did the same thing. People can easily say he abandoned his family. No, it's not like that. He made them to know his preferences in life for more than 2.5 years. He made them, he settled everything. He did not just run away when there was mounting liabilities. God saw to it that everything was cleared. God saw to it that everything is made provision for them. He made them aware of his preferences, not his life. So it was not, simply walking out. I need that letter, one letter to his wife, another letter to his friend that completely, discharged all his dharma. Then he took. Because here the priority got shifted. Preference got for a better, higher life came up in his mind because God willed it. So we have to do a lot of thinking. Then we will find. The reference book is the biographical sketch or masters. Take the instance of Gandhiji. He was a good practitioner, earning a lot of money in South Africa. Good barrister. Just to leave everything and then plunge into activities which are not at all commercial, where it will not give him any earning. God's call. He was able to hear. Initially, Baba was unable to understand. Again, then Baba also was able to later on realize. We go through each and every thing, then it becomes very clear. Where is the Lakshman Rekha of Dharma? It doesn't mean none of us can immediately jump into it. Unless this, only that person will know. Nobody else will know. Whether the mind has reached that stage to take the final leap. Totally relying on him and him and him only. For them, this dharma does not become a hurdle. Yes, direct role of a director in Shuddha. Every time we have to keep on thinking about it. Another devotee has written, you see, Ram has already chosen Ramdas as his own being. The moment here in this chapter we will find at times, some wavering comes. But immediately Ram gives him, though he puts him on test. If suppose there is some disturbance, immediately he makes him aware. Of course, he is a chosen instrument, no doubt. Papa was already a highly realized soul, otherwise how could he know the tests being put to him and pass them to? Yes. He had raised himself to a higher level, where he was trying, to make it a constant reality. We take it that he had experiences in the higher realms. He had almost submitted himself totally at the feet of Ram. But still that constancy he wanted. We take it that all the rest of the period, if we call it a sadhana period or whatever you call it, it is only to get himself stabilized in the constant remembrance. Because when we go through, we find that at times there is some disturbance in the surface level. But in the shortest possible time, it goes. Then as time goes on, as experiences keep on piling up, it gets concretized. Okay, now coming back to today's topic. Why are we taking so much burden on ourselves? Yeah, we need not. The burden is on us because we have removed him from the scene. We attribute the reason for our disturbance on some external factor, either an individual or a situation or an object. We don't bring in the God element. So the purpose of now motivating us to go intently through in quest of God with this perspective is to change our attitude towards men and matter. You take it like that. We have superficial faith in God. We believe in the words of our masters. Still, it has not become a reality in our life. So many things are there which are becoming conducive for us to accept it. But still, we have not accepted as His will at all times. So the burden is, we feel the burden on ourselves. Especially physical burden, we will immediately feel. And at times, financial burden. At times, the action or reaction of somebody else. We carry it in our mental burden, the intellectual burden. On a lighter vein, we all know that we all share this, that when we travel in the train, we don't have to carry the luggage on our head. Whether we carry it on our head or not, the train will carry. To hear, convincing, rational, logical. But that will all come only when we know that the engine is carrying us. We are only telling this for others. But when it comes to us, we still think that we are the engine. So the engine has to carry all the burden. So it's a question of intellectual knowledge and then the practical application of the practical knowledge into our life. So we will definitely feel the burden, and probably the feeling of burden is also willed by him so that we will cry for his help. Ultimately, when he makes us to feel that it is not bearable at all, then we plead. That's what Papa did in the first chapter. No? Where is rest? Where is peace? Until he heard, trust me. And when he trusted, the burden was off his head. Coming back to the today's text, this chapter is a little bigger than the previous ones. After dimensions, keep it right tomorrow. We'll first read out. In due course, Tirupapurur was reached. After the boys made some thoughtless comments, they became very friendly. They checked up with Papa whether he had taken any meal. Then he said, no, that was a reminder to him. Immediately he said, fruits. So they did not have those fruits, so they handed over the money to the Sadhuram who was accompanying. Sadhuram brought some fruit, and then the train reached this place called Tirupati, and both of them got down on a veranda. So in due course, Tirupapur was reached. Ramdas was taken by the Sadhuram to the house of an old relation of his, where on the veranda the night was spent. Next morning, the Sadhuram advised him to go for alms to a few houses pointed out by him. The Sadhu said, look here, Maharaj, said the kind-hearted Sadhu, money is wanted for your plantains and milk. Ordinary food can be easily procured, but for your food, money is needed. He conducted Ramdas to a street, both sides of which were studded with houses owned by wakils. Go from house to house. They might give you something. I shall wait for you at the other corner, suggested the Sadhura. Ramdas, who was always at the bidding of his guide, did as directed. Begging at the door of about half a dozen houses, he got a handful of copper and other coins, which were all handed over to the Sadhuram, who on counting found them to be about 10 annas. Your Ram is all really kind, remarked the Sadhuram, smiling. This sum will do for 2 days. In the course of the day, there was a talk about Pondicherry, which Ramdas came to know lay only at a distance of about 20 miles from Tirupapurur, 32 kilometers. Nearly the distance from here to Kasaragod. A desire sprang up in his mind to visit the place for the darshan of Sri Aurobindo, great Bengali saint. The wish was expressed to the Sadhuram, and he agreed to it at once. The following morning, early before sunrise, both started, of course, on foot and went towards Pondicherry at about 2 p.m. They must have started by 5 o'clock, say. 9 hours, 10 hours. Because Even a brisk walk, 4 kilometers is a tough job in an hour. The outskirts of the Pondicherry was reached. The peculiarity here was that the entrance to the city was lined on both sides, a few yards from each other, by toddy shops. On entering the city, inquiries were made for the home or ashram in which Saint Aurobindo lived. After knocking about for some time, the gate of a palatial building was pointed out by a friend, wherein the sadhus were told the saint was residing. Entering, Ramdas inquired of two Bengalis, whom he met in one of the rooms at the entrance of the building, if Saint Sri Aurobindo could be seen. To this, one of them replied, "Sir, sorry, since Sri Aurobindo is in retirement, he will not give audience to anybody for a year to come." Ramdas then begged the favor of a mere sight of the great man, which would satisfy him. Even this favor could not be granted. It was all Ram's wish. So he came out and explained the circumstances to the Sadhu Ram, who was waiting outside. While this was going on, a policeman was observed to be approaching the spot where the Sadhu was standing. Coming up to them, the police said, "Friends, you are wanted at the police station. You have to follow me." At this, the Sadhu Ram was immensely frightened, and pulling Ramdas aside, whispered to him that most probably the policeman was taking him to be flogged. Ramdas suggested they might accompany the policeman, leave the future in the hands of Ram. About half a mile's walk, the police station was reached, and the sadhus found themselves standing in front of a tall man of middle age, with fierce looks and a well-curved and twisted moustache. He spoke something sternly which could not be grasped, for he must have done so in French. A reply in English was given by Ramdas, and the man, who seemed to be a police inspector, simply stared in return to indicate that he did not understand what was spoken. Then a talk in Tamil ensued between him and the Sadhu Ram. The import of what the police inspector said was that only 2 hours were allowed for the sadhus to clear out the city. At this, the Sadhu Ram remonstrated that after a walk of 20 miles at a stretch, the tired pilgrims required some rest, and they preferred to remain in the city for the night and leave the place next morning. This reply not only did not satisfy the inspector, but also appeared to have offended him a bit, for now he talked fast, his eyes glistening, and twisting his mustache furiously. Allowance of 2 hours were reduced to 1 hour, and if they did not obey the orders promptly, he warned that they would be made to pay for it. This time the words he spoke were freely spiced here and there with some finely selected epithets of abuse. Sadhu Ram at once pressed Ramdas to move away swiftly from the place for very life. He was a poor man, both frightened and annoyed at the sharp words of the inspector. A few yards off the station, Sadhu Ram commenced to pour quite a shower of abuse on the inspector. No amount of persuasion on the part of Ramdas for peace would stop the brisk play of his tongue. He was assured it was all Ram's wish, and so there was no reason to grumble. Still, he continued to give vent to choice epithets of abuse. He seemed to be quite a master in that line. For about a mile, the Sadhu Ram's wrath did not cool down. Gradually, he became silent, maybe due to exhaustion of his stock of vocabulary or on account of empty stomach. Or it might have been all a trick of Ram. To test Ramdas, he would join him in the game set on foot by him. Ram alone knows, and he alone can judge. Retracing about 4 miles from the city of Pondicherry, Sadhu Ram selected the veranda of a shop, which was shut for taking rest for the night. Early following morning, they started on their return journey to Tirupapuriyur, which place they reached at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Here it should be stated that the Sadhu Ram was looking after him so tenderly that he was a veritable foster mother to him. Again, it was all Ram's work. whose ways are at once loving and mysterious. Next day, the train carried both the sadhus to Tiruvannamalai. Here, the sadhuram conducted him to the house of a goldsmith with whom he was acquainted. The goldsmith was a pious man. He pressed both the sadhus to remain in his house as guests. For some days, Ramdas occupied a closed veranda in his friend's house for his meditation and rest. In the mornings and evenings, he, along with the sadhuram, would go to the huge temple of Mahadev. One day, the kind sadhuram took him for the darshan of a famous saint of the place, named Sri Raman Maharshi. His ashram was at the foot of the Tiruvannamalai mountains. It was a thatched shed. Both the visitors entered the ashram and, meeting the saint, fell prostrate at his holy feet. It was really a blessed place where the great man lived. He was young, but there was on his face a calmness, and in his large eyes a passionless look of tenderness, which cast a spell of peace and joy on all those who came to him. Ramdas was informed that the saint knew English, so he addressed him thus: Maharaj, here stands before thee a humble slave. Have pity on him. His only prayer to thee is to give him thy blessing. The Maharshi, turning his beautiful eyes towards Ramdas and looking intently for a few minutes into his eyes, as though he was pouring into Ramdas his blessings through his orbs, shook his head to say that he had blessed. A thrill of inexpressible joy coursed through the flame of Ramdas, his whole body quivering like a leaf in the breeze. O Ram, what a love is thine! Bidding farewell to the Mahatma, Sadhu Ram and he returned to the goldsmith residence. So many incidents. Now, for the first time in his life, just imagine, Papa has been asked to go and seek alms. You just think, to go and stand before somebody's house. That means complete self-effacement is necessary for a person like Papa. Till 2-3 days before, as Vittal Rao, he has never gone and asked anything from anybody, begging. Just imagine. But so how Ram was taking him, test, first test, and he passed the test. How willingly he went. And the Sadhu Ram was also a noble person. Otherwise, he would not have subjected Papa to go through. Because here, on those days, when somebody goes for alms, what is given is more in the form of food articles. When Papa was having the woe, not to have the rice or something like that, and he was sticking on to milk and fruits, for which money is needed. So he explained this to Papa. And he showed them like a child, we can visualize. He conducted Ramdas to a street, both sides of which were studded with houses owned by Vakil. Go from house to house. They might give you something. Wait for you at the other corner. So for the first time, he has been asked to go for alms. A first test for the ego to seek alms from others. But the vow taken makes it smooth for him to do so cheerfully. Because he has taken, among the 3 vows, the last vow is that hereafter, the body be maintained and fed upon the fruit procured by Bhiksha, or on what was offered as alms, either bhiksha or on alms. So true to the sankalpa he made at the time of initiating himself into the order of sannyas, he readily agreed. He passed the test. Sadhu explained the reason for asking him to do. Ramdas wanted to make it clear. Ram wanted to make it clear that the sadhu asked Ramdas to do so only because of the Ramdas's insistence on fruits for which cash is needed. Now, again, first time when he received the 2 paise as the bhiksha, in the Srirangam, he expressed his heart was full of, his heart leaped with joy at the sight of these tiny coins. Okay. Now, he did not even bother to count. He just handed it over to the sadhu. He was asked to do something, he carried out. That's all. No? Just imagine. Neither getting elated nor getting demoted. Just hand over. And then what the Sadhu Ram said, your Ram is really kind. The sum will do for 2 days. Sadhu Ram was also a noble person. No? Contentment is there. You are supremely happy to acknowledge that Ram has been extremely kind to provide for 2 days with that. Total detachment on money received by handing it over to the sadhu. Sadhu's honesty and contentment comes out in his. We are seeing the test, First test was asking when he was asked to go on alms, willingly he goes. Second test, any attachment towards the alms, he did not boast, oh, today I got so much. Did he say that? No. As if nothing had happened. He just handed it over. When he made that comment, third test, there was no reply. And then suddenly, this is another point. In one spiritual journey, darshan of Mahatmas, satsang with Mahatmas, going through their life and teachings will all help us a lot. Especially when so many tests are being given to us. We should have the necessary strength and courage and confidence. For this, the satsang helps a lot. The moment he heard that Sri Aurobindo was a great saint, he was in Pondicherry, which is lying about 20 kilometers. Suddenly a desire comes. With nothing to fall back upon, they have to walk on foot. So when the desire to have the darshan of Mahatma, walking a distance of 32 kilometers was not at all a problem. And without food, they must have done it with 8 to 9 hours or 9 to 10 hours. Just imagine. And when they reached, test again, the severest test. You go all the way walking without food, on road, on foot. And the moment you go there, you find he is there, but you cannot see him. He has gone out, it's a different thing. He is on retirement. For 1 year, he has taken that. Spiritual aspirants, we get some clues, that even great Mahatmas take to such severest vows. Probably to intensely go further and further and further. We cannot say the reason. At that time, you find immediately, normally, Papa used to submit. But here, he asked, then begged the favor of a mere sight of the great man, which would satisfy him. Even this favor could not be granted. Then he knew it was all wrong. At times, straight away accepting, he has been accepting everything straight away, This gives us a feeling. This is the purpose for which Ram took him, to make him constantly submit to the will of God. So when we look at ourselves, we should also know he may give us some form, some moods where we may accept, but he may also give us some. Immediately our intellect will come in. We have come all the way, for 32 kilometers we have walked. At least you permit us to see. So he come out, explained the circumstances. He tried. Twice he tried. When it failed, he came and explained. And then what happened? And the second one was the severest test. And he passed. The policeman asking him, even Papa has given us a word picture of the police inspector, so beautifully. Even we feel irritated the moment we see the word picture. When he is, twisting his mustache and ferociously looking, and not at all recognizing that they are sadhus, not at all recognizing that they have done they have done the walking all the 32 kilometers, and he did not check whether they had their food. All these things come to our mind. And then what happened? They were asked to quit. Allowance for 2 hours were reduced to 1 hour. And if they did not obey the orders promptly, he warned that they would be made to pay for it. Sadhuram at once pressed Ramdas to move away swiftly from the place for very life. He was both frightened and annoyed at the sharp words. And after that, we take it, Papa was a mute spectator. Because the dialogue was between the Sadhuram and the police inspector in Tamil. Because Papa did not know Tamil and the other man did not know English. So Papa was a mute spectator for the whole scene. And then when the Sadhuram started showering all abuses, grumblings, complaints, Papa told him it was all Ram's wish and there was no ground for grumble. But still he continued. And then one more word Papa has added here. Papa would understand that it could also be one of the tricks Ram played. It could be a trick of Ram to test Ramdas whether he would also join. Then whether seeing the finger of Ram in this inspector or whether they seeing only the inspector. The Sadhu Ram saw only the inspector, so he couldn't accept it. He couldn't reconcile to it. But Papa had the time to think about it because he was not talking to them. Initially, he was talking and they could not understand. So the Sadhuram was talking to him in Tamil. So the time was there for Papa. And luckily, he passed the test. He says it could be a trick. It might have been all a trick of Ram to test Ramdas if he would join him in the game set on foot by him. Ram alone knows, and he alone can judge. So the lesson for us is how careful we should be. No? Our intellect will come and tell us all its arguments. It will make us to take judgments on others, on situations, on objects. So this episode, definitely if we go deeper and deeper and deeper into it, it will serve us whenever such tests are given. It might help us in pulling us up. It could be a trick. It could be a play. It could be a masterly test. Because why you say masterly? Because the intellect is justified in bringing about all its argument from the Vyavaharik level. We cannot blame unless and until we bring the spiritual dimension, God dimension. Otherwise, we cannot. Even today, we cannot agree with the inspector. We cannot agree with the inhuman behavior of the inspector. Because we see him as an inspector. When we see him as an inspector, we are justified in forming our own opinion. But when we see him as Ram, come to it. Some comments are there in the So when we look at him as an inspector, we are fully justified with whatever judgment we have on him. But the moment we bring in the God dimension, then we realize that, like the severest test. Apparently, the intellect can have all its. This is very important because we are dealing with everyday men and matters. Apparently, we will be right, but we are not right. God is testing us through that. That is the truth. That we should become aware. We used to say, how can he ask do that? How can you do so? There is no how, Why and whereof is not there. That is the stage we have to reach. We at least know now. Whenever we point out the why and whereof, immediately, we should be, hey, who are you to decide the why and whereof? The programmer, he has decided it. It should be like this. We should lose. We should get insulted. We should be deprived of. All those things will be there. Don't allow your puny intellect to sit in judgment. It's a very important point in this episode. And then next day morning again, early morning they started back to Tripabri or again 32 kilometers journey. Just imagine. No mention about food anywhere. And with all that, Papa doesn't forget to say the goodness. Here it should be stated that the Sadhuram was looking after him tenderly, that he was veritable foster mother to him. Again, it was all Ram's work, whose ways are at once loving and mysterious. So next day they left for Tirunelveli. Here they stayed somewhere, and Papa stayed there for some days. And there again the word meditation comes. A closed veranda for some days. Ramdas occupied a closed veranda in his friend's house for his meditation and rest. Constantly reflecting. Constantly reflecting. Otherwise, this cannot happen. Constant reflection leads to constant remembrance. Constant remembrance enables us to accept everything as God's. This is the lesson Papa teaches us when he makes the word meditation. In every chapter we find this meditation comes. We have not given any, unknowingly we have not given any importance. What was the secret of this poise? This poised stand of Papa. The secret was that he was constantly meditating on God, reflecting on God. Even if it is slightly broken here and there, whenever he was doing meditation, he must have been doing it intensely so that the impact remains even in the non-meditation time. And then he would go to the Mahadev temple, and then finally, God arranges for him to have the darshan of Brahma Bhagavan. Another unique saying, who also did not follow any formal tradition. At a very tender age, he could hear the call, took the leap, left his place and reached Tiruvannamalai and sat. Somewhere, we remember to have read that the entire sadhana was over before he came and sat. People think that we did sadhana. It was not like that. It was only reveling. That is why somebody, when the other day we were reading Sheshadri Swamigal's. So it was Sheshadri Swamigal who used to go there and attend to the basic things, because Bhagavan was unaware of even the needs, feeding, cleaning, everything. Just a loincloth, he sat there. This is unique. Not only that he did not undergo anything that is traditional, but at the same time he went to a temple only. But the realization, the sense of individuality had completely become subservient to that power. So for all apparent this thing, he was maintaining a sense of individuality. He was well established in that.
He is not the body. I am not the body. He is there.
So all happened because at his house he saw the death of somebody. That was the only instrumental cause, if you have to say instrumental. Then what happens to the body? What is called death? A little bit of reflection started coming. It became deep and deep and deep. And finally the core was touched. The spark came out. Then he couldn't be there, he was drawn. And he sat there. For all practical purposes, we can say he was positively indifferent to the whole world. That is why he was not even replying. It is not indifferent, positively indifferent. You could see only the cosmic power, cosmic truth dwelling in everybody. So whom to talk to whom? Somebody take that. It's not necessary. We will read a few quotations. There is nothing to realize. There is nothing new to gain. On the other hand, a man must lose his ignorance. That's all. How did he scale the height? He has put it in a simple word. There is nothing to realize. There is nothing new to gain. On the other hand, a man must lose his ignorance. That's all. You need not aspire or get any new state. Get rid of your present thought. That's all. How he could do that in such, this was the guiding, the reflection was going on like this. There is nothing to realize, there is nothing new to gain. On the other hand, a man must lose his ignorance, that's all. You need not aspire or get any new state. Get rid of your present thought, that is all. The self is eternal, cannot be born. Body appears and disappears. And your identity with it makes you speak of birth and death. Simple, no? Though it is profound, it is conveyed in a very simple way. The self is eternal and cannot be born. Body appears and disappears, and your identity with it makes you speak of birth and death. I am born on such a date. I will not say I will die on such a date. My death is sure. That much you know. Silent meditation in the mind is higher than silent meditation in the mind is higher than the best devotional praise or uttering of the sacred name loudly or softly. Silent meditation, which Papa was resorting to every now and then now, in the mind is higher than, not that it is very bad, is higher than the best devotional praise or uttering the sacred names loudly or softly. Make effort, just as water is got by boring a well, so also you realize the self by investigation, exploring. Watch the mind. You must stand aloof from it. You are not the mind, and the self will remain forever. Silence is of four kinds: silence of speech, silence of the eye, silence of the ear, and silence of the mind. Only the last is pure and is most important. Silence of speech, silence of the eye, silence of the ear, and silence of the mind. Only the last is pure silence and the most. The mind turned inwards is the self. Turned outwards, it becomes the ego and all the world. The mind does not exist apart from the self. It has no independent existence. The self exists without the mind, never the mind without the self. Some more of his quotations tomorrow, and what Papa has talked about, Bhagavan Ramana, that also we will read in this context. Today, Ram was taken to the darshan of Bhagavan. Because later on he will say, when he went there, though Maharaj here stands before thee, a humble slave, have pity on him. His only prayer to thee is to give him thy blessings. So when we go to a Mahatma, we only ask for his grace, blessing. And Papa says, the Maharshi turning his beautiful eyes towards Ramdas, looking intently for a few minutes into his eyes, as though he was pouring into Ramdas his blessings through those orbs, shook his head to say that he had blessed. Something like this. A thrill of inexpressible joy coursed through the frame of Ramdas, his whole body quivering like a leaf in the breeze. O Ram, what a love is thine. Bidding farewell to the Mahatma, Sadhu Ram and he returned to the goldsmith's residence. The impact we'll see tomorrow. So many tests, and finally now, after the test, Ram is also giving him that he is on the right path, he has passed all the tests. That is why the inexplicable, that pleasant feeling that welled up when he had the darshan of Maharshi, inexplicable, that feeling. Without exchanging a word, he comes to know. We are through Papa's itinerant journey. Ram is taking all of us, making us to understand the various tests given on Papa, reminding us to get well equipped for such tests in our life. And he shows us that you will be able to pass the test only if you hold on to him. And different types of tests now we have seen. More in the store. But every now and then he gives us, just like the Mahatma's darshan, where he gives a beautiful description about his experience. Something for all of us to deeply think over. Today he took us to the holy presence of Ramana Bhagavan. Let us all take the best advantage of this journey facilitated to us by him. And not merely hearing, not merely thinking, but making a resolve every day that give us the strength to translate this into our very life. Somebody has asked, Ram was testing. If Papa gets disappointed or just leaves, okay. Somebody has written, why he was not having a rosary. So right from beginning, we have never heard Papa wearing a rosary or using a rosary. Even when the initiation was given, there was no rosary. In all the photos we have, whatever we have seen, we have never seen him holding a rosary. Papa was not at all, because to him constancy means always. Mataji later introduced this rosary for the same, because Mataji knows our weakness. Unless we have something, some symbol with us, we may not be able to do it. For the first 1 or 2 or 3 days, we may do it out of our enthusiasm. Then the euphoria will get evaporated. We will be back to square one. But when we say we make a resolve that we will do 1 mala, 2 mala, 5 mala, 3 malas, then there will be a discipline to constantly chant. So Papa has never asked anybody to have mala chanting. Mataji wanted it only for that purpose, to make it a regular habit and then finally go beyond that. Rest of the points so moved by this particular session in front of Bhagavan. Okay. One more observation, although Aurobindo did not give Papa's darshan, he was destined to meet Bhagavan. Hari Om. Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram.
Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Om Sri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram
Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Om. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Om.
Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram
Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Om. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Om Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Ram. Satyanath Maharaj ki Jai. Hari Om to everybody. Any other question?
Yes.
Will you be satisfied?
He is the only one who came here this year.
And so, look,
The political education. Right.